So, by the way, I'm going to bring up some topics to talk about with Amazing a little bit later on about this interview that he did that was very good with Invent Global, because he said some things that about kind of analysis in the game that are super interesting. And actually, we can tie in one of them right now, because as we talk about CLG, one of the topics in your interview was talking about kind of healthy team environments, how you experience that as a player. You specifically called out Reggie and TSM as creating a good team environment. And then also how you then took some of these lessons and applied them to your coaching. And so let's tie this into the CLG point. We usually try, let me put it this way. I usually try and avoid having potential hot button topics with our guests, and then I allow them to comment on what we just said as they so choose without drawing them too deeply into the debate. I doubt you give a fuck personally. So in terms of team environment, not just the PR angle, but the team environment, what was your take on the stuff that was being said within the kind of CLG prep room at LCS there?
I mean, oh man, okay. Like in terms of what can like there's usually like 11, like usually it's like 20% is right, 80% is wrong, But in this case scenario, I generally think you could have not said anything that would have been worse than what they basically said at that point in time, right? You're in a team room. You address the whole team as a GM, which is already like a position that is like kind of fluctuated in terms of power over the course of the splits and over the course of the years, obviously. And you basically address them, you sit them all down, somewhat like little children, like in a kindergarten group, and you're like, guys, this may be the last time you're gonna be playing, and this may be the last time you're not gonna be fired. And you just legitimately just sit them down for the camera for that purpose, and put them on the spot to actually like also show emotions at that very moment, right? Like, what kind of message are you sending? Not just towards like the players, but also towards anyone that wants to join CLG.
Exactly, future players.
Yeah, you're like, oh my god, okay, so if I get fired, at least I know there's going to be a camera there. So this is going to be my warning. Oh my god, there's a camera. No, not again. So this is what I'm trying to imagine right now, that like future players are so put off by that I think most players just wouldn't want to be in that situation. It shines such a bad light on the day-to-day operations. I think Grabs had a tweet about it, that it was telling how if this is how they operate on camera, how do they work on a day-to-day basis? And that's basically the question we all have to ask ourselves. Like, how do you get to the point that you have to sit your players down, tell them they're going to be potentially fired, and then utilize that as content and think that's a good decision overall? Like at some point, someone in the hierarchy has to have had like a thought of, it's like, are we the baddies? And that never came. It was just uploaded. It was just uploaded anyway. So no one thought they were the baddies.
I want to actually ask you two this, because I'm still genuinely struggling to figure out what like CLG's side of this was. Like, for example, when you're saying like the speech they gave there, I still can't tell, because as far as I can tell, it's one of these two, and I want to get your vote as to which one it is. Either they think like, this is why it doesn't make sense at CLG, because this isn't like a CLG vibe, but it's either that they're doing like the sort of like drill sergeant thing of like, look, like, unless you all buck your ideas up, any of you could be out here next week, so you've got to sort of get wins. Basically, it's like trying to be like, this is Man United, like, we already win, or you get the fuck out. You try and do like a hard approach. Or the other one, and this is the one that I part of me feels it could be this, or they really think they're doing these favors they're doing these players a favor, like emotionally, by like sort of not springing it on them that they could be fired, instead being like, look, we gave you like a week's notice, like, like it could be next week, like, so which do you think it is of those two? Because I go between the two when I keep thinking about it, because neither of me make sense to me. What would you lean on?
I mean, it's a clear number two for me.
Okay.
I don't think that CLG has, I mean, and I think you said it earlier, right? Has the draw nor the capabilities of actually like demanding that kind of quality from the players and being like, hey guys, if you don't play better, we have to bench most of you. It's rather the second that's why I had the kindergarten reference to a certain extent, that it feels like that they did them a favor, but basically kind of like telling them already in preparation. But it's such a twisted view, because it's basically telling people they're going to be executed very soon, potentially, but without any kind of chance of ramification, like of like remedying this, redemption, right? There's like, you're potentially going to die, but like, we can't do anything about it.
And what I hate about this kind of communication too, not saying that the org can't say this. I don't think that saying it really helps anything. But you also don't know that, like, clearly the org itself, to play devil's advocate for a bit, is frustrated with the performance based on the money. Like, objectively, this roster of veteran players should not be performing this badly. Like, pound for pound, they should be at least a mid-table team in the LCS. They don't have bad players.
Agreed.
Like, to be clear.
Agreed.
So, but here's why going back to the PR and context thing, we can't know if the players have been causing problems or drama, and this is the last straw for the management. And so what could be happening is that the management looks like bad guys in this situation because we don't know what has gone on this entire year. There could have been tons of bullshit to get up to this point in time. But this is the reason why you don't release these videos, because it just makes one person, in this case the management of CLG, look bad, and we don't actually get any real insight. Like, for all we know, we could totally agree with this approach if there was the right set of circumstances surrounding it. But because we can't know, and this is the information they choose to put out there, we have to judge everything on this one moment. And this one moment in isolation, in a vacuum, looks fucking bad.
It does. It is up to them to create that context, right? Like, I mean, as I said it, if you continuously create the situation where you have like uploads every single week, like we had back in the days with TSM CLG, like we had these uploads every week where you could kind of see the line, for example, with Chaos back in the days where you kind of saw it coming, you knew he was going to be benched to a certain extent. Like, you at least have that context, you kind of know that his actions kind of drove that decision making. But in this case, you know, like, this is the first time they've uploaded anything of that quality and that seriousness in quite a while, that you have no idea where to put it. And I mean, I think no matter what though, it kind of puts a really weird, I mean, it just puts doubts in my mind about the decision making. It doesn't even need to be the management being the bad guys or the players potentially being the bad guys, either or. It doesn't really matter. It's more about the decision making that led to them like uploading this out of context, that they're so unaware of the situation and the potential ramifications that they accept them or they don't even think about them.
There's obviously a lot of stuff, by the way, we could segue into. Like, for example, Monty, one of the things I know from talking to him on past shows that Amazing didn't like about his own career was the period where, funnily enough, the same player who was in that video, Broxer, when Broxer was brought into Fnatic, they basically just straight up told Amazing, like, you're going to be here to sort of train him to do your job, and then one day he'll just replace you. Are you cool with that? And unsurprisingly, Amazing was like, not really cool with that, actually. I'm trying to be a pro player myself here. Why the fuck could I train this guy? So basically, it's one of the reasons why Amazing sort of had to, like, gradually exit the team and end up eventually with Schalke or later on with Thieves. So this is a bit of a loaded question because I sort of know where you lie on this, Amazing. But what I want to know was this. Taking away the on-camera element of it, right? Because this is sort of in the same wheelhouse. What do you actually think, though, about the premise of sort of telling people either, watch out, you could be benched, or you will be benched if you don't perform? Because like I said, I was pretty cards on the table about it before. I would prefer, personally, like, everyone sort of knows that's the implication for any player in theory. I know in theory the certain players can't be benched, but almost anyone, if they play badly enough, eventually, or if you cause enough problems, will be benched. So everyone sort of knows it. I just don't personally know if it's that good. I've never been a player, though, for someone to directly tell you. Like, if you were a player, for example, would you rather they told you in advance and you felt like you got warning? Would you rather they don't tell you at all? Would, in your case, like they did with the Broxer one, does it actually just fuck with you more if you know that someone's going in with the whole thing where they're not sure who they're using, etc.? What would you say to that?
I mean, I think a pre-warning, but a private pre-warning, not actual private one, one that isn't on camera, like is the best thing you can do. But it depends on the player type, right? Like for me, for example, I'm going to be honest, I like when people are confrontational with me because to me it shows a decent amount of respect that you're telling me, hey, straight up, this is what I think is the current issue. I want you to improve in that direction. Otherwise, we have to find a different solution for the issue, right? For me, this is positive. It gives me like a clear line. Okay, this is what I have to improve on. Whereas for others, this is actually an added pressure that they feel on the back end. They suddenly are going to be. They're already under pressure. They're already underperforming. You kind of feel this too, that you're not really performing to the standard that like you're used to, that the team is used to, and then you have that added pressure of being told, hey, you're going to be fired potentially if you don't play to the certain extent, to that extent, right? So it definitely depends on the player type. I would, however, say that it's never a good solution to just surprise people with a firing. No matter what, this is the most unacceptable one because first off, you didn't have to respect the term beforehand, and you then literally like put put them in front of the guillotine and legitimately just execute them right on the spot without telling them any kind of context why, what they could have improved on within that time. And that is rather a result out of bad management or bad coaching, because the coach or management should have known what kind of direction they want to put forward and orientate themselves towards in order for the team to improve. And if they can't do that, then it's on them.
Well, we don't know if that was done or not, right? Because that's the whole thing. Is like, I guess, I appreciate your perspective, amazing, but like, if you want to professionalize the scene and you want to treat it like traditional sports, of course the coaches should be there and the management should be there, giving regular performance updates to the players, making sure that they know. But at the end of the day, like, I don't think, from my perspective, going to a player and saying you must improve on these things or we're going to bench you is the wrong way of going about that process. I would say, you need, this is what we need to work on with you. And if it doesn't improve, what I would do is just roll up and be like, we're bringing the academy player in for this week. Like, it's a performance-based system. You don't have to give people notice, right? They should have a clear set of parameters on which they need to improve. But I think the way to do this, what's so wacky about this approach to me is saying, like, this might be the last time all 5 of us play together. But I would be in and I'd be like, guys, today was it was a disappointing week. We're going to be rolling with these academy players next week. This is our starting roster for LCS. This is our starting roster for academy. Let's go. Done.
No,
great.
I think that's a clean approach. It's telling people, like, I mean, but then you observed what happened before that, right? Like, I mean, we don't know about CLG in this case scenario, but that's like, it shows a management like with foresight. I think regular performance basic updates are necessary. I think they're good. To me, I think it depends on what kind of team structure and team culture you want to establish, right? For example, in TSM, and many people, I mean, I talked about this at some point, but I didn't really expand on it. There was a period between week three and week 4 where I had to sit down with Reggie and Loco, and they were basically telling me, hey, if you don't improve, we're gonna have to look for a different player, because we don't like the way you're approaching certain things. To me, at that point, it was positive and made me realize, hey, they actually care about my performance and they actually want me to be part of the team. That's why they're telling me these things. That's how I felt about it. Whether it was true or not is a different question, but that's how I felt about the situation. So I thought it was positive to kind of go with that approach instead of just like giving a nudge into a certain direction, being like, hey, you should we're going to try to improve you on this. And if it doesn't work, then we're going to have to roll with academic players. So for me, it's rather like, hey, clear cut, that's what it is. So
to go back, like, when you talk about the kind of environment that you had on TSM, because I think in your interview you were very clear that you thought that the environment was set up well, and then later helped you transition into coaching. What were the things? Is this the kind of stuff you're talking about, where they were very straightforward, respectful, honest with you about your performance and what was coming in the future? Or were there other aspects of TSM's team environment that you really liked and applied later on?
I mean, I think the first premise was that like we had a winning culture, right? I mean, it was like set into motion by Reggie, obviously, like having this prior experience and knowing this is what we want and this is what he wants. So everyone kind of had that initial buy-in and knew what TSM was about, because TSM at the time obviously was also a big brand, probably potentially bigger by comparison to other teams than now. So everyone knew what it meant to be on TSM. You saw the shows, you saw everything. So everyone had that initial buy-in, so that already helped. Then furthermore, you had the hard work, honestly, of Loco and Reggie, that they kind of showed that they're going to work as hard, if not harder, than each one of the players. So this Michael Jordan approach of, hey, I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I'm not going to do. And both Reggie and Loco, I mean, Loco at times, I mean, he knows still, but it is something different. But like both of them had this hard work and effort for quite some time. They're working harder at Worlds even than the players were. I mean, Reggie was up for like 18 hours a day or something like that, and he watched VODs 24/7. So, I mean, I guess 18/7, but whatever it is, he was really just there all the time. So we always had a presence in the room that kind of like helped us facilitate like the team, like we kind of always had a direction. He was always there to kind of give us some assistance, and he was just always present. And I think that kind of leadership from the coaching staff is necessary if you want to drive a team from the top down, and you don't want the players to basically be left to their own devices. Then I think that's the right approach, and I think that's what TSM, to me at least, did. Then beyond that, obviously, we had other things like team activities. Like we went out almost every Saturday to eat together, found new restaurants, did some exercises in the morning too. And then in Korea, obviously had the insane amount of like travelers that that unite you in a different way than anything else could do. Because you have the common struggle, you want to win worlds or you want to do well at worlds, and you're going through it together.
By the way, when you actually joined TSM, was obviously after they'd already had the whole like TSM Game Cribs thing come out. Like when you joined, was that even in the back of your mind when you joined the team that like obviously like I could be the guy who looks bad in one of these videos? Was there anything you even thought about?
No, I never thought about it. Like actually, no, it didn't come up in my mind because I didn't think about it as important. It was just something that's going to be passively there and it's going to observe me sometimes. But we had really clear cut things that like we had to do in terms of sponsorships and videos and everything like that. And I think Lena as well as Reggie, they were pretty lenient in terms of like if players, for example, needed more time off and they didn't want to do a video, whatever it is, then they were also given the time off. So it wasn't as enforced despite the sponsors being really important to them.
Was it weird being filmed though? Like if you were having one of these like team discussions and you know the guy just filming that massive camera, can you block it out of your mind?
I mean, at the time it was kind of weird because you kind of had to act for the camera. You kind of had to be someone else that you were not in order to look good to the fans, especially. Sure. So it did affect me a bit, but given the fact it was never in meetings that were really important, it really didn't matter as much. Like it was just entertainment for the fans, and we knew as much.
Amazing actually said no to the Ward costume that Reggie wanted to make him wear, though, for TSM Legends. Hey. He turned that one right down.
He actually told me not to play Nunu anymore because he thought it was too slow. So he actually really saved me from that one, yeah.
Oh, there's a fire Halloween costume idea for you, Maurice. You should literally just like get some cardboard and make yourself a Ward costume and put a TSM logo on it, and that shit will go viral. I promise you, it'll be really funny. There you go. Free one for you.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or be a pleb and don't.